Ladies and sinners, welcome to another edition, a Tuesday evening edition of the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'm your host, Cal Henderson. You guys can get at us again, as always, on our Twitter mentions, right? We've had a hot Twitter take this upcoming week, and we'd love to see more. We'd love to see more retweets, more likes, and if that's what it takes, covering more Raiders, in-depth Raiders calls, like the one where Derek Carr made the audible at the line of scrimmage, even pointed at the ISO block on the game-winning run by Josh Jacobs. We're for it. Get at us on our Twitter at SinCity_IESR, at Cale Henderson. Cale_Henderson, that's my personal. Get at us all the time, guys. We're always willing to speak with our fans. We're always willing to interact. It's always peaceful unless you're super negative and I can't stand it, then I might call you a punk ass or something like that. You know, it's a little bit. I got to do everything within the framework of IE Sports Radio mantra. You know what I mean? The morals. But for that matter, you guys know how it is. Another Tuesday evening edition, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. The Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. We're covering University of Las Vegas, Nevada. Nevada, Las Vegas. They have a new coach, or they do not have a new coach. They're in a coaching search because they did let Coach Arroyo go. We're going to cover his tenure. We're also going to talk about candidates. Some I like, some I really don't like. Trust me, you won't like them either once you hear some of the things I have to say. I'm not going to get into full detail because I don't quite know everything or have completely validated sources for sure. But I live in Lincoln, Nebraska. I knew what happened, and we'll talk about it, okay? Because I don't think it's good for UNLV. Golden Knights are still on a tear. We're going to cover the Raiders and their victory. This is Victory Tuesday, as you folks know, here on IE Sports Radio. Raiders Victory Tuesday when we get back here on the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'm your host, Cale Henderson. Before we get into the show, we have to talk about our platform, IE Sports Radio. IE Sports Radio themselves, for the last 8 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content, ranging from interviewing legendary athletes to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all sports cities around the country. All the while, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and with your help, we are ready to take the next step. When you go to our website, iesportsradio.com, you'll see our Patreon link with 5 different tiers. The first one starting at just $5 a month. This donation gets you shout-outs on all 32 of our shows. Higher tiers include IE Sports Radio merchandise, access to our podcasting university, and even a chance to be featured on a segment of our flagship show hosted by the man, the myth, the legend himself, Larry B., The Defining Moment. Thank you all very much for continuing to make IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports. We're back at again another Tuesday evening, folks, and we're going to cover UNLV football. UNLV football is doing what it needs to be doing. I mean, and on my opinion, we talked about it last week, folks. You heard it here first. I personally predicted I thought Coach Arroyo would be gone. I didn't necessarily agree with it, but this is a business. College football is a business. You have a lot of really good things going on at UNLV right now. You saw progress. He just couldn't get it done in 3 seasons. Listen, he had a really hard road, but he just couldn't get it done in 3 seasons. Taryn Rodriguez joins the show. Thank you, Taryn, as always, for being a great teammate. This is why I play your drops more than anybody else. Good evening, Cale. Have an awesome show. Thanks, brother. Going to be honest, I didn't expect the Raiders to pull that one off, but you called it. Seahawks aren't as good as many people think. The Raiders could make a run, but my Chargers can't lose this week. I think both teams can't lose, man. Raiders definitely can't lose because they have 7 losses. One more, I think it kind of eliminates them in the AFC race because right now the wild card teams, all 3 wild card teams are 7-4. Technically, the Raiders are 3 games back. Now, granted, 2 of those 3 games are against 2 of the next 3 games are against the Chargers, who are in the hunt, and the Patriots, who are also in the hunt. Getting 2 wins there would eliminate both of those teams as far as tiebreakers are concerned and stuff like that from playoff contention. And that'd be really cool if the Raiders could do that twice in consecutive years at home. But man, there's just a lot going on. This is the way I look at it, Taryn, and I'll be real. We'll get more in depth in it later on. The Raiders are a damn good team, but they're not, right? I think they're starting to come on. I think you're seeing progress. I think you're starting to see Josh McDaniels grow. What I still stand by the fact I think he should have been fired a few weeks ago. I think he was pretty close to losing the team. I don't know what happened. I don't know if he had a change of heart. I don't know if he had finally had some honest discussions with the leadership in the locker room, but you can tell this team is playing different, even if it was against bad teams. I think Seattle had a good defense. The Raiders were just too much for him, especially in the middle. The one thing I can tell you the Raiders deserve a ton of credit for is their offensive line has improved tremendously in the run game, right? From what we see from week one now, it's just a different looking offensive line. They're still allowing pressures on like 43% of Carr's dropbacks, which is among the leaders in the NFL or the worst in the NFL, I should say. So it's not a good stat. I got to give him credit where credit's due, man. Like the offensive line is developing, it's gelling. You're seeing better scores from PFF. Honestly, the only real crutch right now, you would think it's Alex Bars because whoever heard the hell of Alex Bars? No, it's actually Andre James, the second-year starter in the middle, who's having a difficult time adjusting, which is part of the reason why I thought, from the very beginning of the draft, Dylan Parham would end up being the center next year. I have a feeling Dylan Parham will be the center next year. I really do. Unless they bring in somebody better in free agency or in the draft, I just don't see Andre James back. He's got a very favorable contract. They could keep him on, but I just don't really feel like he's improving, and we'll get into that. Taryn Rodriguez says, it sucks what happened to Coach Arroyo, but UNLV football may need a major change or overhaul, and it starts with him. I agree. Listen, Arroyo, we talked about it last week on the show. You guys heard it here first, man. I didn't think he'd survive the season. I really didn't, especially after they lost that game, or they essentially basically lost, what was it, 4 in a row? They were 4-2. They were 4-2 to start the season. Yes, some injuries took place. You did see some improvement, but it is what it is, man. He had a losing record here at UNLV. He did. He had a losing record. There's not much you can do, and it is what it is. I think he had a bad start. I'll say it like this: the guy started in the COVID year. Yes, they basically went 0-6. He really didn't have a chance to recruit at all because you couldn't do on-site visits. It was all things over the phone. And I think it was just a really messed up recruiting year for any coach in college football, including Nick Saban. Like he said, he had his challenges. It's still Alabama, but even they hated it. You just couldn't really visit on site, and you were kind of taking chances on kids you didn't really get to see in person. You just had to kind of rely on the film. UNLV is no different than any other program in that aspect. And Coach Arroyo he had a bad start. It is what it is, man. He went 0-6 in his first season, or he went 0 for. He didn't really get a chance to recruit very well. The second season, you saw improvement. This season, 5-7 was better than what you'd seen in years past. And I mean, I don't know. I think what you're seeing is a university and a football program that realizes they're at a turning point. And I'm going to say it like this: it's nothing against Coach Arroyo. I think he did a good job. I think he started something there, something to build on. But I think UNLV understands with the new facilities, the $40 million football facility, with the spot at Allegiant Stadium, you have attractive qualities to bring in recruits. If a major Power 5 program doesn't actually offer specific kids spots on a roster, there's no reason UNLV can't be targeting them. There's no reason UNLV cannot be targeting kids that are just outside the spectrum or maybe on the spectrum, like maybe the lower end of the spectrum. These guys can find these things out. They have the resources. They know if Wisconsin might offer this kid, but they're waiting to hear back from 3 other athletes on whether they accept it or not. UNLV can swoop in on that, right? I'm just giving you an example, but that's kind of what we're looking at. These coaches know that by the relationships they build with the athlete when they recruit them. That athlete, if they're willing to say, yeah, coach, I got 3 offers here, here, and here, and they know they're out of the ballpark, they probably won't mess with the kid. They'll say, hey, my line's open, man. They'll stay in contact. They'll continue to build the relationship. If the kid decides to go elsewhere, it's no harm, no foul. Like, no coach really gets upset. I mean, I'm sure they do, actually. I'm sure they get really butthurt. But listen, it is what it is. The kid's got to do what's best for them, right? But they also know when a kid's like, I'm on the fence. Coach, XYZ from Minnesota told me, they kind of have three offers out. They were real with me. They told me they're waiting to hear back from them, and that if I needed to accept other offers, I could. They're being really honest. I appreciate it. But yeah, coach, you've been honest with me ever since. So I would like to accept your offer to go play at UNLV. They can do those types of things. They can get those fringe athletes that are out there. Those fringe athletes could fill up your roster and really make a difference. And I think the next coach is going to have to do that. I don't think, again, Coach Arroyo did a bad job. He brought in Brumfield, he brought in Babin, and both of those guys really started making that offense better. That offensive line got much better. It was horrible the first 2 years. They finally got to their junior season, or maybe some upperclassmen in this group of offensive linemen made a huge difference for the offense this year. They still ended up 5-7. I do believe a lot of that has to do with the injuries, but it is what it is, man. It's a results-based business. That's just how college football is now. It's a business now. It's not the long-term spectrum that people think. And UNLV is at a business precipice that they know they have to hire. The next guy's got to be good, and he's got to sell tickets, and he's got to bring some excitement, because right now the Mountain West, it's down compared to what it was. It really is. I think it's down compared to what it was, and now's the time for UNLV to really snatch that idea, go after that. I think now's the good time, really good time for UNLV to get after a really good coach that has experience, that knows how to build a program, that isn't afraid to recruit. And there's some guys on the list, man. Like, I was reading the Las Vegas Review-Journal by Bill Eichenberger. Las Vegas Review, bit of a shout out to them. UNLV's wish list right now: Mike Stoops, former head coach at Arizona, where UNLV athletic director Eric Harper served on his staff. Mike Stoops wouldn't be a bad idea. The Stoops brothers have a long history of storied coaching, obviously with you guys get how it is, man. I don't see Bob Stoops ever coming back to coach at this point. I thought if he was going to do it, it might have been the Nebraska job if he was interested. But Mike Stoops and his brother Mark's killing it in Kentucky. Mike struggled at Arizona. I think Arizona is a really tough place to coach in general. You could argue that they should probably be a I don't know, group of 5 team, because they're really on the bottom at the Pac-12. They're tough to gauge. But Mike Stoops just didn't really have a really good thing going there. Arizona, it's really hard to pick up anything. You saw it with what was the coach out of Texas A&M? You're going to have to forgive me on that. African American coach. He did a really good job at Texas A&M. Was the head coach for Johnny Manziel. Things didn't work out at Texas A&M because Texas A&M wants to win. So he was replaced by Jimbo Fisher, but ended up taking the job at Arizona. He couldn't even get things going there. Arizona's a tough place to recruit, I think, in my opinion. I think it's a tough program. The rest of the Pac-12 is just better, and it's tough to attract that. I think Arizona State's better than Arizona. It is what it is. Tucson's a cool place, but it's not that great. So Mike Stoops kind of had a bad thing going there, but he knows the area. He knows the desert area, the southwest portion of the United States. He recruited there. He should still have a pipeline and connections with families there. Wouldn't be a bad call. Gary Patterson is also on the list. Gary Patterson's a storied coach. If he has interest in coaching, and Gary Patterson wants to come back and coach UNLV, you hire Gary Patterson. Gary Patterson did wonders at TCU. He's a huge reason TCU is even considered to be a part of the Big 12. What he did those years, my favorite years were those, was about 10, 11 years ago, 12 years ago, when he ended up meeting, their team ended up meeting Boise State, and it was either the Orange Bowl, the Fiesta Bowl, I apologize, Fiesta Bowl. That was a fun game to watch. Both teams were undefeated. You just couldn't believe it, and it was fun to watch them. I know that Boise State got the upper hand in that game, but TCU with Andy Dalton and boys, a lot of fun to watch. Taryn Rodriguez chimes in. Kevin Sumlin. Thank you. That's who came before Jim Fisher. I agree. Yes, so Kevin Sumlin had a hard time at Arizona. I thought Kevin Sumlin would be fine because of his experience in A&M. He couldn't get anything going there, man. I think he had an excellent quarterback at one point, a very athletic one. The Pac-12 at that time, I don't know, with Oregon the way it was, Utah the way it was, Arizona just couldn't really get anything going. I remember Sumlin and how he received death threats after blowing a 28-point lead to UCLA. That was a horrible situation. Honestly, I think fandom just gets way too crazy sometimes, Taryn. We're experiencing it a little bit in Nebraska right now with the new hire of Matt Rule. You don't necessarily see that, but you do see a lot of people that are kind of putting their nose in the air, almost like Nebraska's too good for Matt Rule or something like that. I just hate those types of situations where we don't even know what we got yet, and you got people like really being hostile and threatening. It's not okay. Um, Shane Shane Steichen, I guess that's another one on his list. I don't know much about him. He's a former UNLV quarterback, now offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles. If he ran the Philadelphia Eagles offense at UNLV, I don't think that'd be great for UNLV at all. UNLV isn't that type of team. UNLV does not have the boys up front. They'd have to really spread it out. I just don't know if that'd necessarily be a fit. Keenan McCardell, a former Rebel, he's the wide receiver coach for the Vikings. That'd be super dope. Trip down memory lane. I don't know if that's always the best way to go. Trust me, as I know as a Husker fan, as a born and bred Lincoln Husker fan, bringing Scott Frost back was nothing but a marketing ploy, in my opinion. I said this almost 6 years ago when he was hired from UCF. You could throw a rock and hit, a 4-star, 3 or 4-star athlete that didn't get offered an offer in Florida by the major schools. So building UCF was easy. He also took over a team that went, yes, like 1-11, but the year before that they were in the Orange Bowl with Blake Bortles and Latavius Murray. Like maybe it was a couple years before that. Either way, it's a program that's been very successful in the group of five. UCF has. I didn't think what Scott Frost did was very impressive, and I wasn't quite certain he was ready to be the head coach of a Power 5 conference, much less Nebraska, who is starving for a coach to come in, really change the culture back to its winning ways, and keep Nebraska consistently going to bowl games. He's a name on this list at UNLV, and I guess I'm not going to try and get into too much detail with him because I don't necessarily have 100% ironclad sources. But what I can tell you as somebody from Lincoln and the things I've heard, and it's a repeat offender type situation. He did it way back in his days as an offensive coordinator in Oregon. Scott Frost is not a very honest man outside of the field, off the field. He's not a very dedicated man. We heard a lot of situations and kind of led to his firing this year because they were trying to give him a shot. He was showing up to meetings hungover, did a lot of drinking, and wasn't very honest with who he was and what he was doing in his free time that was keeping him from being a better coach or keeping him from bringing wins to Nebraska. Scott Frost was 16 and like 31 at Nebraska. He made almost $6 million a year in the 5 years he was here. He basically made just over, I don't know, $1.5 million a win at Nebraska. That's not okay. And the behavior behind the scenes is what concerns me. And you take someone like that who obviously, again, they're just rumors, and I can't confirm them, but they were talked about quite a bit by people around the organization, around downtown Lincoln, where obviously the heart of Nebraska football is. He just wasn't a very good guy outside off the field, and he's got his vices. I don't think that'd be a great fit in Las Vegas. I hope they stay away from him. Don't think Scott Frost is somebody who should be running a program. Not after what I know and what I've heard the last 5 years at Nebraska. Yes, things went downhill fast. He had a lot of pressure on him, but he just wasn't ready, and it is what it is. Nebraska had to make a move and move on. Colin Klein is an interesting name. That's the son of Chris Klein, the head coach of Kansas State. I think they've done a great job. The Klein family has done a great job taking over in Kansas State. Kansas State is really hard to recruit. They have to basically use a lot of junior college avenues. They have to recruit kids and develop them more so than most teams in the Big 12. And what they've done at Kansas State has been remarkable. They're a physical team. They're a multiple offense. I think they're primarily a physical team, ground and pound. I don't necessarily know that'd be a great fit, but again, that wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing for UNLV to add to their identity. More of a physical team rather than a finesse, spread it out, throw it around team. We'll see what happens. The Mountain West, in my opinion, is down right now. Now's the time to hop on somebody. Here's a couple names. If I were UNLV, here's a couple names I would really throw out there. Okay. Tom Herman is an assistant coach as we speak for the Chicago Bears. Tom Herman did wonders with Houston. Tom Herman was able to land the number one recruit in the nation, Ed Oliver, his freshman year. They ended up beating Oklahoma, right, in the first game of the season. Oklahoma's not a team that anybody can beat, and that was Big Game Bob's I want to say Big Game Bob's last year, Bob Stoops' last year as the head coach of Oklahoma. Tom Herman can get some stuff done. He did a good job recruiting at Texas as well, right? Just that's one of those places that just isn't the same as it used to be. I think Steve Sarkisian's doing a good job. I just don't know if Tom Herman necessarily got a fair shake in Austin, but he did an excellent job in Houston. Again, group of 5, right? UNLV should go after Tom Herman right away. Tom Herman is a perfect fit offensively. I think he's a perfect fit schematically. The guy knows how to recruit. Obviously, as what you saw with Ed Oliver, he talked Ed Oliver to going to his school. The number 1 recruit in the nation that year. He's now a starting nose tackle and contributor for the Buffalo Bills. Ed Oliver loved Tom Herman. Went to Houston because of Tom Herman. If Tom Herman can get the job at UNLV, I think he turns some things around. The other name that's kind of on my mind, and I've been thinking about, is Clay Helton. Clay Helton just really didn't get much of a fair shake at USC, in my opinion. I think he was just kind of a holdover. I think USC was always looking for a bigger name coach to bring in his tenure. Did he earn the job? Not necessarily. He could have done better. He could have done a better job of recruiting in California. But Clay Helton is somebody who's got a pipeline there. So you can go one of two ways. You can go Tom Herman, who's got a Texas, Oklahoma, Southeast pipeline, or you can go Clay Helton, who's got that California pipeline. Either way, either coach is used to being a head coach at a Power 5 level. This would be a step down, probably easier, and something they get some breathing room. Excellent facilities, much easier to recruit. I think those are two names that people should think of. And another one that's kind of been through the grapevine I've seen on Twitter, it's probably just some craziness, right? John Gruden still wants to coach, still lives in Las Vegas. He's currently in a lawsuit with the NFL. He's probably going to win. He may not ever get another head coaching job in the pros, but I mean, you bring someone like him with the cachet he's got, I think you get recruits up the wazoo in UNLV. And he's already familiar with Allegiant Stadium. Wouldn't be a terrible idea until you know for sure what's going on with this case situation. But I see coaches get second chances all the time. Steve Sarkisian's a perfect example. Did what surfaced with John Gruden that happened 12 years ago, was it worse than what Steve Sarkisian did on the sideline at USC? Think about that. Steve Sarkisian was caught drunk on the sidelines. No different than Scott Frost was caught hungover and drunk on the sidelines and late to meetings and stuff. Yet those guys got second chances. Scott Frost is likely going to get a second chance somewhere. I hope it's not at UNLV, but he's likely going to get a second chance. We got to think about that. Helton wasn't bad. Taryn Rodriguez says Helton wasn't bad. He's better than Adam Gase, in my opinion. Helton wouldn't be a bad hire. No, not for a group of 5 school, not at all. UNLV will be running the Spider 2Y banana. They hire Gruden, calling it right now for sure, man. That would be hilarious too. What a troll move too, and I think it'd be amazing for Mark Davis. They're still great friends. He didn't want to fire John Gruden. He didn't think what the NFL did was right. Yes, what John Gruden said was absolutely wrong, but it was stuff that was dug up from a decade ago. Him and Mark are still really great friends, and I know Mark kind of had to use Gruden as a sacrificial lamb because it's been very clear from what's coming out in the case. The NFL hunted this man down. I mean, it's going to be hard to imagine. The NFL is probably going to have to settle. And I don't think John Gruden's going to settle. I think John Gruden's going to get his money. At least half of that contract, that $100 million, it wouldn't surprise me if $50 million comes from the NFL. At all. The Raiders are not liable at all. The Raiders were broke free from that contract because of conduct detrimental, right? To the league, to the team. The NFL, however, it's looking more and more like that was a manhunt. So, we'll see what happens. Those are just 3 names. I think the top 2, the more realistic ones, though, Tom Herman, who could get a major job this year. You never know. If not, if I'm UNLV, I'm throwing him a bone, man. I'm throwing him a contract, right? I wouldn't be afraid to make him the highest paid group of 5 coach right now if I'm UNLV. You have the facilities. You have the field, home field. Dude, do it. Las Vegas is cool. Tom Herman knows how to recruit. Get after him. He'd be perfect. Running that old Ohio State, Urban Meyer Ohio State offense in UNLV would be fun to watch. And he can recruit, man. Clay Helton, another one. Again, offensive guy. He knew what he was doing at USC. I think USC was just a bit big for him. May not be too big for UNLV. He's doing an excellent job at Georgia Southern, who beat Nebraska at Nebraska this year. Notable win for that program. When we get back, guys, we're going to talk about the Golden Knights, quick talk about the Golden Knights, their progress this season, and then we're going to jump into the Raiders on this Victory Tuesday here on the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's happening, sports fans? Are you a fan of Southern California sports? Are you looking for a show hotter than a hot summer day in California? Then look no further than the SoCal Supreme Sports Show, where I talk about all things Southern California sports. That's right, all sports teams from Southern California. From the hard-hitting tackles of the NFL, to the killer crossovers and big three-pointers of the NBA and WNBA, to the grand slams of the MLB, to the bone-chilling goals of the NHL, and to the booming kicks of the MLS, the SoCal Supreme Sports Show has it all for you. Oh, and let us not forget about the college sports as well. So join me, Taryn Rodriguez, every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
College football, and do you want to hear a college football show dedicated to all that is college football, including junior college in the CCCAA and in the NJCAA, the NAIA, and the NCAA, including Division III, Division II, Division I AA in the FCS, and Division I Single A in the FBS? Well then look no further. Join myself, Larry B., and my colleagues, Mr. H-Town Blake Henley, and Mr. Christian Espinoza, each week during the college football season for the latest in college football on 3 and Out College Edition, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Sports fans, do you like teams that are tough, cities that are tougher, and fan bases that are passionate about their teams? How about teams that are historic and stadiums that are iconic? Then you belong in Chicago, and you need to check out Chi-Town Weekly. Join me, Adam Kernan, every week as we keep up with all things Chicago sports. Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, Cubs, White Sox. We'll cover them all, plus more. The Windy City is always buzzing, and we'll keep you up on all the big games and major stories. So tune in to Chi-Town Weekly every week right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Everybody, this is Taryn Rodriguez. Are you a fan of volleyball? Are you a fan of Thunder Spikes? Then I have the show for you, Set Point, where I cover NCAA men's and women's volleyball, high school boys and girls volleyball, beach volleyball, and even professional volleyball. Catch the action every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Welcome back, ladies and sinners, to another edition, Tuesday evening edition, back from break of the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio. Your direct feed for all that is sports. I'm your host, Cale Henderson. You guys can get at us on our Twitter forums at SinCity_IESR. You can get at me on my personal at Cale_Henderson, where we have some spicy stuff on there from time to time. For example, just this last week, I'm not here to toot my own horn, but it was kind of badass. Talked about Derek Carr. Was probably one of the first people, I'm not going to say I'm the first, but one of the first people, because it was minutes after the game, or after that play, noted that Derek Carr legitimately killed the play at the line of scrimmage, right? The guy who's the problem, by the way, who threw three touchdowns and nearly 300 yards, the guy who's the problem in a Raiders uniform, killed the play at the line of scrimmage, even signed it, pointed at the ISO block. Jakob Johnson blocked that dude out, the offensive line masterfully, just manhandled the Seahawks, and all Josh Jacobs had to do was one move, and he was 86 yards for a touchdown, for the walk-off touchdown, man. Noted that on Twitter, 1,400 likes, 134 retweets, man. That's what we do. This is what we're trying to do. This is what we're looking for, and I'm glad it's starting to work out. Hopefully this continues. We'll try and find bits and pieces that we think are keys to every game, and to me that was huge. First play back on that second drive for the Raiders, and Derek sees something we've been asking for as a fan base. Let Derek Carr have full autonomy, all right? Josh Jacobs can say whatever, Josh McDaniels can say whatever he wants at the podium. And all of the simps out there, go ahead and read all that and say, take it for what it's worth. I can tell you guys right now that Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler said, we're going to try and win this year. The moves and the roster and the way that they've been coaching, I don't know, man. Even in the game, and we'll cover this. I'll digress. We'll cover this later on, but we're going to talk about it. I don't totally believe what Josh McDaniels is selling right now. Again, I think he's made improvements this season, but do not totally believe it. We need to give Derek Carr more autonomy at the line. He needs to have more freedom at the line of scrimmage to call audibles. And we need more up-tempo. We can't run 2 minutes the whole time. I'm not saying that for the losers out there saying you can't do the duh. But what I'm saying is every third series, when you have the defense on their heels, especially when you're up by a score, you can run hurry up. You don't have to be basic and run the ball 6 straight times, giving the ball back to the defense. You don't have to do that. And we'll cover that more. We're going to talk about the Golden Knights here. The Golden Knights are still on their tear. 17-6-1, a few losses since the last time we talked. Last Tuesday, for that matter, they were basically 9-1. Now they're 5-4-1 the last 10. Just won the game yesterday. They have their next game December 1st. Honestly, man, they're still on great pace. They're leading the West by about 5 points, which is 2.5 games. You can't be mad about that for the number 1 seed. They're probably not going to catch the Bruins and Devils unless they have a fall off. Still a lot of season left. Don't get me wrong. Only 24 of the 82 games have been played. Still a lot of season left. But, man, the New Jersey Devils and the Boston Bruins from the Eastern Conference are just absolutely killing it right now, both with 38 points. And, I don't know, man. I don't think there's another team in that division that could mess or match the Golden Knights, because the Golden Knights are that good this year. But, dude, when the Golden Knights get to the finals, and I believe it, I'm going to call it right now, when the Golden Knights get to the finals, I 100% believe it's going to be one of those two teams, because they look pretty damn scary right now. Next game, again, December 1st. That will be in Pittsburgh, 6 p.m., so 2 days from now, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Golden Knights will be taking on the Pittsburgh Penguins. Then they stretch to the Red Wings, the Bruins, which will be a great matchup, give you a gauge of where the Golden Knights are compared to the league-leading Bruins right now. And then they start their home game stretch December 7th against the Rangers, then the Flyers, then the Bruins again. So a couple key matchups there, especially against the Rangers and the Bruins. You'd like to see the Golden Knights come out on top of those games, kind of give you a gauge of what you'd be looking at in a 7-game series maybe. I know it's not quite accurate because it's the first part of the season, but still, you definitely want to see what they're like against the better teams in the NHL. Transitioning over the Raiders, man, we're gonna do a deep dive into that, okay? I want to dive further into what we talked about, but most importantly, we have to celebrate. This is Victory Tuesday here on IE Sports Radio. Raiders Victory Tuesday, okay? Win City is a trademark that Mark Davis has filed for. I'm sure he'll get it. It's Win City today on IE Sports Radio, Sin City Sports Show, right? IE Vegas. It is Win City on a Tuesday evening. Victory Tuesday, baby. We got to love it. The Raiders go into Seattle, win 40-34 in overtime. Probably never needed to get there, but had some stellar performances on the offense. I saw some turnovers on defense. The defense is still trash. 26th in the league in total yards, points allowed per game. Like, they're absolutely horrible in that aspect. But for the first time all year, we saw about 2 or 3 turnovers forced by that defense, which gave the offense a chance to really kind of, put this game where it needed to be, and that's in Derek Carr's hands, right? Derek Carr and Josh Jacobs' hands, for that matter, and allow the offensive line to really road grade the Seahawks. Things we're going to talk about. I'm still a firm believer that I don't necessarily know at this point if Josh McDaniels truly wants to win games. I don't know. I can't believe Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler at this point. They told us we're winning now. That's not the case. Yes, Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow are hurt. And yes, there is some frustration building with Darren Waller's injury. There's some people that believe he won't be back for the Rams next week. That the hamstring is worse than that. He just isn't showing up, and that's not good at all for the Raiders. It's horrible. But the reality is, man, we need those guys. If we want to make a playoff run, we need those guys. So I don't know what kind of conversations are happening between Dave Ziegler, Josh McDaniels, all that stuff. I know what they told us. Don't take it with a grain of salt right now, man. Like, we'll know if they really want to win if this continues to improve. Right now, what I've seen is Josh McDaniels and company can beat teams that are bad. I don't think the Denver Broncos are good at all. We're seeing what's happening there. Like, defensive linemen are basically trying to kill Russell Wilson on the sideline. Justifiably so. I think he's washed up, and the guy is a method actor playing quarterback. He really kind of creeps me out now. Mr. Unlimited, let's ride. I mean, that guy needs his ass kicked, to be honest with you. It'd be hilarious if Purcell would have done that. I was actually kind of hoping that the Broncos were going to cut Purcell and the Raiders pick him up off waivers, because we need that kind of attitude in our D-line. Tillery, by the way, Jerry Tillery has been an excellent addition the last 2 weeks from the Chargers. I wonder what that's going to be like. I hope he wreaks havoc this upcoming week against the Chargers in Las Vegas. That'd be epic. Another thing, tickets are $500 a ticket right now. Ridiculous. For losing teams, I hate it. I think it's garbage. Absolutely terrible. I get it. That's part of the thing. StubHub or whatever, they all go out. They buy tickets at face value, maybe slightly higher than face value, and then just basically double the ticket price. I just don't like it, man. It's kind of scummy. I hope we see as many Raiders fans as possible because it's the Chargers. I'd love to see that, kind of like the playoff game last year. It was a sea of black, man, and the Chargers fans literally had no chance, right? If there was a brawl, no Chargers fan was making it out that night, and very little casualties to the Raiders fan base. Back to Josh McDaniels. I don't believe him when he says that Derek Carr has full autonomy at the line of scrimmage. It's BS. And the people out there that are just looking for reasons to hate on Derek Carr obviously aren't watching the games, because a lot of these plays that are being called are designed. They're pre-designed, predetermined plays. When Derek Carr has freedom and when he has the ability to run more of an up-tempo offense, this is a different football team. This is a more efficient offense, for that matter. A lot of things need to change. You can tell that Josh McDaniels is growing and he's learning. What's pissing me off is these little beta male end of half plays that he has, right? I'm not too against the first half where he kicked with 14 seconds left. You just use your last timeout. If you throw the ball and it's inbounds, you then have to hurry up, spike the ball, and it was fourth down, so then or I guess it was second down when they kicked it. You have to hope, you don't run out the clock, or you get there and spike the ball in time. You don't want to mess with that. I get it, okay? That portion I get. I can live with that. What I can't live with is you have one of the best 2-minute quarterbacks in the league. The man legitimately, the previous offensive series, drove down the field and threw his third touchdown pass to Foster Moreau to tie the game up at 34. Third touchdown pass after throwing two the earlier in the game. Granted, I will say, I think one of them was actually the receiver's fault, right? I think one of them was the receiver wasn't necessarily looking until last second, okay? I'm not necessarily going to blame the Foster Moreau one, although I do believe he needs to be more consistent with his hands, and if the guy wants to get more playing time, he needs to make some damn plays, stop letting the ball hit his hands, stop dropping easy catches. That stuff's starting to really upset me, and makes me miss Darren Waller even more and get more frustrated when I hear these reports about Darren Waller not showing up to practice. I get that he's been hurt and he's been dealing with a hamstring injury, but I hope it's not serious, and I hope that's just rumors. Derek Carr is legitimately one of the best late-game quarterbacks in the league, if not the best. He has 32 comeback wins since 2014, the league's highest amount. He was 7-2 last year in one-score games. Last year alone, 7-2. This year, he is now 2-6. Started out 0-6. I think everybody knows it was Josh McDaniels' fault. Let's be honest. I think that guy puckers up when it's time to make play calls. So how do you solve that? You trust your 9-year vet. You trust one of the best 2-minute quarterbacks we've seen in the league in years. You allow him to conduct the offense and get guys in the right spot to succeed. Just like he did in the very last play of the game. That 86-yard touchdown. It was a pass. He saw 2 high safeties, so cover 2 or cover 4 possibly. Probably cover 2. He saw linebackers scoot up. It was basically 4-on-2 in the box. Even with the heavy box that we had. It was basically 4-on-2. Nobody ran with the motion with Matt Collins. So Derek said, oh, check, kill, kill, kill. He called an ISO play. He even pointed at the linebacker, number 55. 5. Jakob Johnson tattoos that dude. The offensive line completely demolishes the Seahawks defensive line, who was absolutely dog-tired in that game. And all Josh Jacobs had to do was make one move. Josh Jacobs deserves credit. Offensive line deserves most of the credit. But Derek Carr deserves a ton of credit because he changed to that play. Allow Derek Carr to do these things, man. Derek Carr has proven that when he puts the defense on his heels, they're in trouble. You saw it against the Ravens last year. You saw it at the very last game against, or one of the very last regular season game against the Chargers. When Derek Carr has a 2-minute drill with down a score, he's almost money, man. Almost money. Like 85+% of the time when he's down a score, his team is going to win. He actually has a winning record in the league in games where his team is down a score. What does that tell you? He's been playing on teams with horrible defenses all these years. Again, this is not a kudos Derek Carr thing. I'm just sick of the slander. The guy threw 2 picks, yes. It wasn't a perfect game, but he also threw 3 touchdowns against a decent Seahawks secondary, man. Quadri Diggs, Griffin, come on, man. Those are good players. Stop it. Derek Carr is a beast. And I just don't understand how people can think otherwise. Josh Jacobs is dealing with some injuries. He's not going to practice this week. That's perfectly fine. I've been saying this for weeks, guys, and I know you guys know this if you've been looking at the Twitter, the Sin City _IESR Twitter. I've been saying for weeks. I've been saying most of this season. The Raiders need to give Zamir White the ball more. You need to see what you have. In 2 plays this week against the Seahawks, he had 28 yards rushing. 2 plays, 2 carries. That's all he got. I like Amir Abdullah at 3rd down out of the backfield. I don't like him on 2nd down running the ball. No offense to Amir Abdullah. I watched him at Nebraska for years. Congratulations to Matt Rule. I love Amir Abdullah. I think he's great out of the backfield. I do not want him toting the ball all game. If Josh Jacobs needs to be on the mend, we need to feed Zamir White. He's a 3rd-round pick. He is faster than Josh Jacobs. I'm not going to say he's more powerful, and he's definitely not a better runner at this time. Doesn't mean he can't get there. He'd be an amazing change of pace, a running back that the Chargers definitely aren't used to. I think it would make a huge difference if we gave Zamir White 5 to 10 carries a game and limited Josh Jacobs' carries to about 20 and maybe 5 catches, 5 receptions if we can. You have to start saving Josh Jacobs for the end of the season. And honestly, the play calling this week against the Chargers is going to say a lot about where Josh McDaniels thinks our team is going and where his head is at. If he continues to improve like he's done the last 2 weeks against a struggling Chargers team, that will tell me that Josh McDaniels is trying to make a run, that he wants to win. He's not trying to hear all that top 10 draft pick noise. He's going to try. If he gives Zamir White 10 to 15 carries this week, let's say 8 to 15 carries, right? Josh Jacobs 20, because I think Josh will play this week, even with the calf strain. He had a calf strain on Sunday, and he still basically had over 300 all-purpose yards. Feed Zamir White too. Let's see what the young man has. Again, he's faster and he's a great change of pace. What you see on film in the few carries that he's had this year is when Zamir White's in the game, the DBs are backing up because they're assuming it's a pass. Josh Jacobs is no longer in the game. Okay, the box isn't as loaded anymore. Fine. Treat Zamir, use that, man. You know Zamir is a good player. Tell him to cover the damn ball, take care of the ball, let him run, man. Let's see what he's got. Let's see what that young rookie has. I think it's vital, man. Vital. I think you have to continue to feed Foster Moreau. I like what Mac Hollins is starting to do. He obviously is still learning, and he needs to figure out better chemistry with Derek Carr. One of the situations I kind of talked about on Twitter with a young man was, I think Derek misses Zay Jones. I think when if Devontae's not going to be open, Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow are not going to be available. It would have been nice to have Zay Jones back. I think Zay Jones would be an upgrade from Mac Hollins. Not that Hollins is not having a good season. He is. He's got over 560 yards. He's playing very well. He's doing a great job using his big body. I just don't think he's always in the right spot where Derek Carr needs him. He doesn't know when to settle down in the zone sometimes when he's wide open. Continues to run his route. Put Derek in a hard spot and forces Derek to almost throw it into traffic. You don't have to do that when you're in the NFL. You should be able to feel things out. Taron Rodriguez says the Raiders need to lock up Jacobs for the future. The Raiders need to get the run game going. They didn't do that the first time around against the Chargers, which is stupid because Josh Jacobs averaged 5.6 yards a carry in that game. I remember coming on the show later that very next week stating that, saying run the damn ball, and you and Larry I could tell you and Larry kind of giving me crap for it, but it was true, man. When you're averaging 5.6 yards a carry, dude, you need to feed the man. I agree. As far as locking Jacobs up, I'm going to say this, Taryn. And I hate this because running backs deserve better. Don't get me wrong. But that's the kind of league we're in now. You don't pay the running back. You just don't. You draft these new guys to come in, take over those carries. New England did it for 20 years. Name one running back that they paid. Other than maybe, Fred Taylor? Name one running back they paid. Yet, every single year they have a 1,000-yard rusher. Maybe multiple 1,000-yard rushers or close to. You don't have to do it. If you invest proper money, if you invest proper draft picks into the offensive and defensive line, your team is going to naturally win football games. I don't necessarily think Josh Jacobs... I think he's a top back in this league. I don't know. He's not worth $17 million a year. Okay? He's probably not worth $10 million a year as a back. The shelf life for a running back is tough. And again, we are now running into calf strains and injury issues for Josh Jacobs. That sucks because he seems to have some nagging injuries every single year. The running back position is tough. That's another thing that I blame Josh McDaniels for. You don't have to run Josh Jacobs all the time. You could 100% divvied maybe 25 of those carries over the season, 25 more of those carries over the season to Zamir White. And I still think Josh Jacobs would be on pace to go over 1,000 and lead the league in rushing. You save Josh if you don't run him basically a full game's worth over 2 games in extra runs. While I don't disagree with you, Taryn, I do, if that makes sense. We're in a day and age where you need to pay the receivers, you need to pay the tight end if they're rare, you need to pay the quarterback because that's what moves the football down the field. Pay the left tackles. That's what protects the quarterback. Pay the pass rushers, pay the corners. Draft your offensive linemen, draft your running backs, draft your linebackers, draft your interior defensive linemen unless they're an Aaron Donald, draft your safeties. That is how you build winning football teams in today's age. What the Rams did is unprecedented. It'll never happen again. And you're seeing it right now. They're paying for it. They're an older team that right now is overpaid. Their season could be done within the next couple weeks. I would hope if the Raiders, do what they're supposed to do. I'm just saying. Not trying to be nitpicky, not trying to be mean to Josh Jacobs, just being real about the situation. This day's NFL is built through the quarterback, the offensive line, and the receivers. Right? Through the defensive line and the corners. It's a passing league. Look at the rules in the NFL rulebook. It is built to pass the ball. Pay those guys. Draft the others. No offense. That's reasonable. The O-line is vital to keeping the quarterback healthy, and defense wins championships. Rams season is done. I agree. The Stafford injury kind of killed it for me, man. And then you're hearing these reports that Jalen Ramsey kind of wants to change the scenery. That's kind of disheartening mid-season. And it was kind of telling that it seems as though Odell doesn't want to go back there. Like, I think he kind of reads the tea leaves and what's going on there. That'll be a name to watch over the next couple weeks. I don't think he ends up a Raider like he would have been if the Raiders were, 7-3. Let's be honest, man. This is a Raiders team that, if they just do what they're supposed to do, and I'm not saying it's the Cardinals or the Chargers. I think we lost that first game for sure. The Cardinals, when you're up 20 points, the Chiefs, you were up 17. I'll still give that loss to the Raiders. The 4 games I focus on right now, and I'm really stressing out about, and it really upsets me because it seems like there's 2 or 3 games a season that keep the Raiders down. If all they had to do was take care of business, it'd be a different story. If the Raiders beat the Cardinals like they were supposed to, up 20, if the Raiders beat the Jaguars, the Saints, and the Colts, as we speak, you're looking at an 8-3 team. As we speak, you're looking at an 8-3 team that is probably very desirable for OBJ. But alas, it's not the case because of bad coaching and players not doing what they're supposed to do. It is what it is, man. It is what it is. The Raiders are where they are. Now they have to make a run, and I really don't think they have much room to lose games because of where the wild card teams are sitting. All the wild card teams are 7-4. I believe the Raiders basically need to win out in order to make the playoffs, and it's possible. Honestly, the schedule is favorable, man. The Chargers are struggling. Okay, Chargers are struggling. The Rams are struggling. The Patriots aren't as good as they usually are. They're without an offensive coordinator. That'll be a very interesting, dramatic Sunday night football game. Josh McDaniels versus Bill Belichick. I'd love to watch that game for sure. The Niners are going to be very tough, extremely tough. They seem to be coming on, but Jimmy G sounds like he's dealing with some health issues. Maybe that gives the Raiders a leg up. You have the Steelers, who aren't a very good football team, and then you finish with the Chiefs team, who's probably going to be the number 1 team in the West, and they're going to sit all their starters. There's just absolutely no way you risk your starters when you have the number 1 seed pretty much locked down, because I don't really see anybody else in the AFC taking it from them at this point at when they're 8-2. I think the Chiefs are sitting their starters in the Week 18 game, and the Raiders win by a couple scores and get in the playoffs. It's possible. I don't know if it totally happens, but it's possible because it's a winnable schedule for sure. But again, those previous 4 teams I mentioned, the Cardinals, Saints, Colts, Jaguars, they were all winnable games too, and the Raiders crapped their pants. It just can't happen if you want to be a winning team, period. And that's on coaching. That's on preparation. I get that we've seen improvement. It has to continue to improve. Nate Hobbs is supposed to be back this week. He was dealing with an illness. He was supposed to return last week, but again, flu. Not much you can do about that. Nate Hobbs is supposed to be back this week, get some practice in. Hopefully, we hear more news about Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller for next week's game. That would be huge additions, especially if you can find a way to win this week against the Chargers. Huge addition. I do believe the Raiders win like 34-31. I truly believe that. I think Derek Carr has another come-from-behind victory. There's just something about the Chargers. Derwin James is the scariest human being on this planet, I think. Bosa is very impressive. But other than that, man, I just really haven't seen anything that's too impressive from the Chargers this year. They're a dink and dunk offense. They can't throw deep. Tons of injuries. This is the time to pounce if you're the Raiders. You have to pounce on this game. Feed Adams, feed Hollins, feed Jacobs and Zamir White, and just have yourself a game. And tons of momentum going into the Rams game. I think the Raiders win 34-31 this week against the Chargers. You may think differently, Taryn. I'm not sure. But I do think the Raiders squeak this one out. Chargers got the first game. I think the Raiders get this game. And it makes things a little hairy for the AFC West, right? Because if the Raiders win, the Chargers probably still have the second place in the AFC West. They're still probably second place in the AFC West by about a game. But the Raiders would have basically gained a game on them, and any kind of errors moving forward would kind of kill the Chargers' momentum. I just feel for Justin Herbert. When you look at Derek Carr's stats and Justin Herbert's stats, by the way, it's so funny, the stereotypes, and maybe you can agree with this or not. You've always been a Derek Carr fan, so I don't have to really preach to you. But it's funny because they have similar stats, yet Raiders fans thinks Derek Carr's trash, and most of the NFL thinks Justin Herbert is he's a future Hall of Famer, right? They have 1 touchdown difference between each other. The QBR is the same. I think the completions percentage is basically the same. The yards, I think, are in favor of Justin Herbert by about 300 yards. I don't know, man. It's kind of crazy to me. Absolutely crazy. Chargers have been living on the edge in their games. They win one, yeah, for sure. Your score is probably going to be close to accurate. I have the Chargers win 31-27. I blame Joe Lombardi for turning Herbert into a check down magnet. Dude, I just think your weapons are hurt. Like, Mike Williams is gone, right? Keenan Allen is getting doubled. Austin Eckler is kind of your solution, but even teams are kind of spying on him. I just think you have injuries going on. The same thing that happens to the Chargers every year, the snake bit. Okay? I'm not going to say anything too bad about it because I don't want that karma to hit the Raiders. It looks like anything could happen there with Josh Jacobs being hurt. But I want Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow to be back next week. It'd be great additions for the last 5 games of the season for the Raiders, who are trying to make a run at this point, especially if we win this week. I don't know. I get where you're coming from on that score. I do think the Raiders edge it out. I think right now they have momentum. They're a better team. But it wouldn't surprise me if the Chargers won. For some reason, I think that Chargers D-line is just going to wake up and have themselves a damn game this week. I'm worried about it. I'm absolutely worried about it because the Raiders' pass protection is horrible. Run block, excellent. Pass protection, absolute garbage. And that's the last thing you need when you have Joey Bosa about ready, or you get Nick Bosa about ready to breathe down Carr's neck. You guys know what it is, guys. We have to close the show out here. With that said, please keep an eye on the Twitter forum, man. We're going to start posting more clips talking about the Raiders' wins, woes, keys to the game. I do believe the Raiders beat the Chargers this week. And I'll say this. If you're okay with it, Taryn, we should probably meet up next Tuesday, even if it's for a 10-15 minute segment and talk about the game. I don't know. Let's talk about this upcoming week, man. I'd love to have you on the show if you're interested. With that said, folks, this is another Tuesday evening edition, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard. IE Vegas, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio. Your direct feed for all that is sports. I'm your host, Cale Henderson. You guys can get at us on our Twitter forums at SinCity_IESR, at Cale_Henderson is my personal. We're always willing to speak with our fans, our participants. We love it, man. We love all things Vegas, all things Raiders. We're going to keep you posted on UNLV, Golden Knights, and, of course, our Las Vegas Raiders. Till next week, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Love, peace, and hair grease, folks.